Hello everybody, I'm Quinn Buckland, author of The Engine Runs the World, Fallen Gods, and the 1099th. I'm trying to get back into doing actual videos, not just reviews, so I'm gonna start myself kind of slow. I'm gonna start doing things every Monday, recording some videos in advance, stuff like that, and so on and so forth. Like, I'm pretty sure the majority of the people understand how this works. I don't think I really need to get into it, but yeah, I want to get back into doing this sort of thing. So today I'm going to get into my top 10 favorite non-indie books. There would be a few of these books that are knocked off the list if I was doing indie books as well. And I kind of want that to be its own list, because indie books in and of itself are kind of a whole different monster. They're kind of a whole different thing altogether. Yes, they're books. Yes, they're written by authors, but these are books that are marketed primarily or solely through the author themselves. Whereas the books I'm about to lift and mention are books that are either classics in of their own right, are award-winning just based on being published through publishers themselves, or got popular through movies. So, yeah. I want to kind of do a whole other video for indie books, and I'll probably do that maybe in June. So, let's get on to this, shall we? I should also probably mention that I am not doing these books in any order or anything like that. Like, it's not a 10, 9, 8, 7, or a 1, 2, 3. Like, these are completely at random, just as a wherever I decide to put them. Anyway, so, the first book I want to talk about is Neuromancer by William Gibson. Probably the best cyberpunk style book ever. And it's probably one of the first cyberpunk books as well. I'm not going to get too much into the plot with these books, mostly just what they are and why I like them. I enjoyed Neuromancer because of its genre, because of what it is, and because it is basically the granddaddy of the cyberpunk genre in and of itself in terms of fiction. William Gibson is just a master of his craft, and while he can be a little wordy at times, it definitely tells a really interesting story, and it's probably a little easier for me to imagine what's going on now with all the technology that we live with today than it probably was in the 80s when this book was published. And it was big then. So, Neuromancer, I definitely recommend this one. It is really, really good. I loved it. And, well, apparently it's in my top 10 non-indie books. The second book I want to talk about is Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. I love Michael Crichton books. I really do. And Jurassic Park, seeing as I, knew it as a movie before I ever knew it as a book, and the movie has been my favorite movie since I was 6 years old, the book was definitely going to be something that I read. And I would be judging the book pretty hard, too, because I love the movie so much. And the book definitely blew me away. Do I enjoy the movie more? Yes. But it's hard to top what I consider to be my favorite movie of all time. Jurassic Park is definitely one hell of a book. It's a wild ride. It's almost nothing like the movie in and of itself, outside the basic plot, or the basic premise, and it's definitely something that I would recommend to almost anybody to read. The next book on the list is easily the master of dystopian fiction in and of itself, 1984 by George Orwell. This is definitely a well-loved book. It's definitely been well read. There's not really much I can say about it that other people haven't. Like, it is just that fantastic. Like, I try and, beat the mold and try and be against everything else. But when a book is just that good, it's just that good. There's nothing else anybody can really say about it. I mean, let's be honest, 1984 is a classic for a reason. The next book on the list is another piece of dystopic fiction, and actually one that I enjoyed way more than 1984. Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Oh, it's hard to catch that one on the camera. This book is fantastic. It comes at the dystopian future in a very different way than what 1984 did, and it shows that you don't really need to show force and keep everybody down in order to rule over them and to keep them subservient and complacent. Like, it comes at it from a whole different angle, and I loved that. And coming at it with a person from the complete outside of the system to explore the system itself is something that I myself plan on using in future books as well. It's something that definitely can really help a reader understand what is going on in a way that the characters themselves, if they're growing up in a certain area and space, wouldn't actually think to talk about. The next book on the list is Ancillary Justice by Ann Leckie. Now, I'm not the sort of person who typically puts books from series on a top 10 list, but this book is really just that good. Once you get past the continual she/her pronouns for everybody, doesn't matter if they're male or female, it's she/her. Once you get past that, it's a really easy read, and it's really something that's kind of interesting and captivating at the same time when you think about it. This is the sort of book that I would actually recommend for anybody who's just really into science fiction and really into something different. The next book on this list is one that might be a little surprising to some people based on, my previous selections. A Dog's Purpose by W. Bruce Cameron. I love this book. It's the only book I've ever read that's actually made me cry. So, yeah. Any book that can get that much emotion out of me is definitely something that needs to be on the top list. And some of it is because, it's dogs. I tend to not feel so much when it comes to people, except for maybe the odd character here or there, if I definitely get attached to them, which is rare. But A Dog's Purpose, yeah, it's dogs. I definitely feel more for dogs. But at the same time, the book is written in a way that is just loving. I love this book. It's one that, if I read books more than once, I would read it over and over again. Why I don't read books more than once is a topic for a whole other video. I'll get into that in a whole other day. But for right now, this one I loved, very much so. Probably top 3, actually, if I'm being perfectly honest. Next up, one that is not going to be a surprise at all, or at least shouldn't be. Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. This book is hilarious. I love it. It's a little beat. My copy is a little beat up. Some of it's my fault, some of it's not. Basically, I left it in a hot car. And then I lent it to my aunt, and, well, it just came back way more beat up than what it was before. Whatever. This book is absolutely incredible. It's one that I would recommend to literally anybody, because when it comes to the religious people, it's not offensive at all, or at least I don't think it was believe it to be offensive at all. And when it comes to the non-religious people, they'll really enjoy the satire within it. It's definitely one of those books that can please everybody if they're a little more open-minded than, what I believe some probably would be. Now, if I were doing this list in order of, 10, 9, 8, 7, this book would probably be number 10 out of the whole thing. Like, this is one where I actually had to go, yeah, okay, this book is actually really, really good. I loved it. It's one that I definitely think about as the best from this author. That is Needful Things by Stephen King. This book is fantastic. I can't praise this book enough. Like, it kept me interested the whole way. And it's not a small book. Like, I've read Stephen King's other large books, like It and The Stand and stuff like that, and a lot of that stuff is very skim-worthy. It's kind of just scenes for the sake of scenes. A lot of it doesn't really progress the story forward in any way. Needful Things, I can't think of any scene in this book that actually needed to be removed. Like, it is just that it is well written, especially for that era of Stephen King. I know a lot of people are all like, old Stephen King's best, new Stephen King sucks. And granted, I haven't read much of new Stephen King, but I think mid Stephen King is his best work. His early stuff, the 70s and 80s, he was kind of on drugs and alcohol a lot. And the 2000s, he started to run out of ideas. I think the latest one that I read was Cell. I tried to get into Doom King many, many times, and I just couldn't get past the first chapter. Like, I just couldn't do it. But anything that from his stuff that I read in the 90s, I definitely thought was a improvement from anything from the 80s, and is better than anything that I read from the 2000s. Granted, like I said, hasn't been much from the 2000s, but from what I have read, it just wasn't as great. Needful Things, fantastic, loved it. The best of the best in terms of Stephen King. This next book is also from a series. It's not the first book, but it is from a series. And it's actually my favorite series of all time. This is Calibans War by James S.A. Corey, the second book of The Expanse. This book, oh my god, I cannot express enough just how much this book is just amazing. I think this is I think I read this book in a week, maybe a little less, because I just couldn't put it down. I would go to work early, so I wouldn't be late, and read in my car until it was time for me to start. And then, while I waited for my car to defrost, because, winter time in Canada, I would read it while it defrosted, and then I'd go home, and then I would continue to read. Like, this book, I just couldn't put it down. I can't say that as much about the other ones. Like, yeah, I read them when I was at home as well, but this one really hooked me. And that's not to say, like, the other books in The Expanse are less or anything like that, or just don't grab you as much. Some of it was definitely circumstantial, time era stuff. But this book, definitely in my top 10, definitely deserves to be in my top 10, and is this great piece of The Expanse. And finally, the last book I want to talk about is probably one that nobody would expect as well. Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. This is another book that actually really got a big emotional reaction out of me. Not as much as, say, A Dog's Purpose, at least not in the same way as A Dog's Purpose. A Dog's Purpose, the dog dying and reincarnating over and over again. Yeah, it got some tears from me. This one got more of an existential reaction out of me. And that actually hits a little deeper. I'm not going to say this is my favorite book of all time. I don't think I will ever have a favorite book of all time. But this one is definitely in the top 2. Top 2 or 3. This one is definitely right alongside A Dog's Purpose, and deservedly so. Like, this book definitely got an emotional reaction out of me, and it got me interested in what it was saying. The writing style is fantastic. Everything about this book is fantastic. And it's probably the closest thing to a perfect book that I can think of. That's really all that I want to say about this for the sake of this video. If anybody wants me to go into more detail on any of the books that I just mentioned, let me know in the comments. I'm definitely not opposed to suggestions or anything like that in terms of stuff that I've read or stuff that I've enjoyed. I definitely want to hear more about what people want me to talk about. I hope people pick up these books. If you haven't read them before, if you haven't heard of them before, I hope you pick them up. Like, they are fantastic. They are really, really, really good, and I want people to pick them up. But anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. Be sure to follow me on social media for updates on what I'm talking about and my projects, actually, for I'm new at this whole outro thing outside of just bye-bye that I normally do in terms of my reviews, so bear with me here. And actually, hell, if there's a book that you would like me to read, let me know in the comments. I'm not above any sort of genre or anything like that. I'm pretty sure that list that I just gave is not proof of that. I've got a horror book, I've got sci-fi, I've got drama, I've got a pet book. Yeah, I'm definitely not above any genre. Feel free to recommend me books. I love to read. It's something that I love to do. It's why I do my reviews in terms of indie books and so on and so forth. But yeah, that's about all I got for you guys. Have a great day.